Hi, I'm Mark of the Crown and Caliber, and welcome to Hidden Gems. I know what you're thinking, the Rolex Submariner. It's ubiquitous, we see it everywhere. But hidden gems are everywhere. And this is what we do. We look for the hidden gems that you don't normally think about. And today, we're gonna look at the Rolex Submariner 16610. So let's get into it. So the Rolex Submariner. It is possibly the most popular watch out there. It was a hit when it first came out in the 1950s and changed the way we look at watches. It started the steel sports watch as not just being a watch for professionals, but being a fashion decision. It's on the wrist of James Bond, it's on the wrist of celebrities. Today, it's the watch that you're on wait list for, hoping to get the call. And part of the appeal is it hasn't changed much. And it's what Rolex does. They change at a glacial pace. The difference between one from the 1950s and one today in 2021 is not real big. If you hold these watches up across the room, the one's 60 years old, the one's brand new, they look similar when you first look at them, but they are at the same time very different. For some people, what they want when they collect watches or they get into watches is to buy a wide range. They want one dress watch and one pilot's watch and one dive watch, one watch with a blue dial, one watch with a red dial, one watch with a black. You get the point. And for others, it's about going deep into one watch or one watch style. And the Rolex Submariner offers that chance. It has a lot of iterations that are special, like a Comex dial or an Explorer dial, these rare finds in it. But it's really the regular ones in there, the ones that are part of the regular production run that I find interesting because there's a lot that changes as we go. And Rolex is actually famous for changing in the middle of a reference number. They'll change the steel, they'll change the movement, they'll change the lume, they'll change the bracelet, and they won't change the reference number. So one reference number can have 5 different variations within it. And that creates the opportunity to find the one you really want. For some of us, that's something that's a bit older. For some of us, it's something that's a bit newer. There's a nostalgia to the older stuff, and there's something convenient about the more modern. And finding that sweet spot in between for some of us is the most important thing. For me, that's the Rolex 16610. It starts out life as the new model with a new movement. It starts out with the 904L steel, which is just introduced in the previous model year. And it has the white gold markers, these hallmarks that have become today part of what is the Rolex Submariner, but were new in 1988 when the 16610 came out. But it still had tritium as its lume, and tritium was what the entire watch world used because it was not radioactive enough to hurt anybody, but it also had a half-life. It only glowed for a few decades, and then it yellowed, cracked, and became very patinaed. There's a charm to vintage watches when you see that, when something shows its age like that. And the early years of the 16610 will have that, up until 1998, when a Japanese company came up with Luminova, which is a non-radioactive luminous material. And it was perfect for the watch industry. It wouldn't age, it wouldn't yellow, it wouldn't crack, it would stay the same for decades upon decades. It took away the problem of seeing this patina and the age in the watch for something that wouldn't work anymore, and the question of, do you replace it, do you keep it original? It is original, it still works, it's fantastic. And Luminova was brought over to Switzerland and became Super Luminova.
They had to.
It's true. They had to. It's the Swiss. If they're gonna make Luminova, it's gonna be Super Luminova. Same thing, just made in Switzerland. And the Rolex 16610 was the first Submariner to get that. In 1998 until 2000, it had Luminova. 2000 and 2003, it had Swiss-made Luminova, Super Luminova. And with that, you had this short run, 1998 to 2003, where this watch had Super Luminova or Luminova, had the white gold markers, the 904L steel. It has this classic case shape that's smaller and is sleeker, unlike the successor to this watch. Comes with bigger lugs and a bigger case. It's often called the maxi case. This one keeps a little bit more of the vintage proportions that you find in the early Submariners. And after 2003 till 2010, when this line ended, the other thing they did was they got rid of the pierced lugs, and they went from hollow end links to solid end links. That may not matter to most people, and for most watch collectors, it doesn't matter. But there's a vintage charm about something that's been there since the 50s, that's been part of the case of a Rolex, that a pierced lug means it's the original design. The hollow end links are part of the original design. Solid end links have a positive net effect in that it's the pressure point in the watch bracelet that takes the most bending and twisting, and solid end links will hold up better. But there's, for me, a charm about the hollow end links and kind of the jangliness of the older bracelet where it feels classic. There's something about it that reminds me of the first Rolexes I picked up, because for me, the first ones I did touch were from the 60s. They were older Rolexes. And that feel of those light, smaller cases and the lighter bracelets is what I look for. And that's just a personal choice. But that leads to the 1998 to 2003 version. It has those pierced lugs still. It has those hollow end links that feels a little more vintage, but has the solid center link, so the bracelet overall is more substantial. It's a case shape that feels classic, but it has the modern movement that's used up until 2020. It has the 904L steel they still use today. It has the white gold markers they still use today. It has lume that will not crack in age. It straddles this small line for only 5 years, and it gives you that feeling of vintage, but the convenience of the modern movement and steel, but the vintage case shape. I'm a big fan of these years. That's what is interesting. When you look through all the years of the Submariner, you can find the one that speaks to you like this. Do you like that vintage style? Do you like it more vintage, but still with the newer steel? But you like the Luminova? Do you want the Luminova painted on? Do you like it with the markers? There's different times where there are different things they present to you. Do you like the larger case shape? Do you like it when they make the case shape a little smaller again, the brand new ones? Do you like the aluminum bezel that this one has? Or do you like the newer ceramic bezel? Take the time to find the one in there that speaks to you, is what makes it personal to you. And for all those reasons, that's why the 16610 in just that 5-year period is a hidden gem. So I want to dedicate this to all the commenters that love to speculate about how watches get chosen for this show. The Rolex Submariner does not need any help selling. It sells itself. These watches get chosen because I find something personally interesting in them. I get to pick the watches, and this is the one that interests me. Join me next time on Hidden Gems.